welcome to Hedgehog Hollow. My name is Alexandra and today I am back with the Crafters Workshop. We are going to be creating this gorgeous alcohol inked panel and then we're going to be heat embossing over the top of it. Lots of techniques, lots of tips, lots of things I learned too. So let's get started. Step of our card is to create our background piece. This is a piece of Yupo paper. I've cut this down to 3 3/4 by 5 inches, which is going to be my matting layer. And this is an idea that actually I thought of one evening. I was sitting on the sofa thinking about it, and you may have noticed I'm on a bit of an alcohol ink kick. I've been watching loads of things. I even joined a group about them, and I found out there are so many more things to do than what I've been doing previously. So I'm going to, again, spritz alcohol blending solution in a mini mister. Make sure your area is well ventilated because it does seem to go everywhere. And I just have the door open a little bit over there as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just drop on some colour. Again, I've gone for those lovely blue colours because we're going to be working with snowflakes. And this is the indigo. I'm also going to add some sailboat blue. And depending whether you shake or just one drop will depend what you get out. But you can see how they kind of all just spread out almost like a watercolour. Anywhere there's that blending solution, they are going to expand into. Now, as I say, this is an idea that I had. I don't know if it will work. We'll try it and see. My idea is to try and marble these a little bit. And you can also put droplets inside of other droplets and they'll react and move. And you can see how beautiful all those colours kind of work together. You do want to choose complementary colours. You can get a muddy effect if you're put too much movement into it. So I just have here my Tonic craft pick. And I'm going to use this. If you remember doing the marbling with shaving foam and things, you'll remember how this works. I think it might need to be a little bit wetter. Let's add some of that blending solution. You'll see how all the colours move already. So I'm just now going to, not really doing much. Let's try just moving it around with gravity. Fantastic colours coming out. Almost reminds me of those, if you've seen the acrylic pouring that seems to be really fashionable and things at the minute, it really does remind me of that technique as well. Let's tip some back to that side. And then I'm going to go back, I'm going to add a few more of those the greeny tones in there because I think they look really nice. And you can see how they are moving out. That looks amazing. This is why I love alcohol inks. The other thing about Yupo paper, it's a plastic paper. So if you do something and you don't like the effect that you get, you can go back. You can either wipe it with an alcohol prep pad or some kitchen towel that's got some of the alcohol blending solution. Mine is still in the old bottle. This is a slightly different bottle. Now it's more of a capitalized bottle. But you can do all of that and then you can start again. You can clean it off or you can let this dry and then add another layer. You might reactivate some of it. But if you're using the same colours, you might like some of the things that come through. And I'm going to, again, just give this a little bit of a move around. I don't want to get rid of too much. But you can see here how I keep just kind of working with it, finding things I like, finding things I don't like. You can also add more blending solution. And you can see how that gives us some fun spots in there. You can also add your heat tool. This is my Ranger Heat It tool. I find this works best with the alcohol inks. I've never had any issues with anything igniting. And it moves it around a little bit, but not huge amounts. So you can kind of dry off some areas like this. So if I make sure that this is completely dry, we can go back and add that blending solution and you'll see you get some more effects. So our marbling didn't work. But let's try something else and kind of do it quite gingerly, off and on, keep moving around. You also get some fantastic watermarks and ink marks and things in there which look really awesome as well. I want quite an interesting background to put our stencil over the top on. So once it's fully dry like this, we could go back and add that blending solution. I mean, look how pretty that is, depending on, almost looks like we're kind of looking through some trees in the forest, and really, really pretty in there. Again, I'm just going to dry this. And I think I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave it there. Let's see what sort of effects we get. So now I'm going to make sure this is really dry, and actually I'm going to leave it for about 10 minutes or so just to make sure it's completely dry before we add that stencil in as well. So once you're confident your piece is completely dry, you then want to take either the powder tool, or for these I prefer the bigger ones because I can kind of really dust all over and make sure that there's no wet ink. Also make sure there's no static on here. Being an acrylic paper, you do end up with a little bit more static, and you can polish this back up afterwards, and I'll be sure to show you how to do that. So I have the new TCW Snowflake Stencil, and I'm going to place this over the top here, like so. And I'm kind of trying to center this larger snowflake a little bit. I'm going to just hold one side, and I'm going to put my VersaMark direct to paper, just like this. So I'm making sure I cover all of my paper. Then I'm going to try and hold the plastic bits and hope my band-aid doesn't get in the way there. Making a lovely slow cooker coconut curry this morning, but that ended up slicing my finger. So I'm just going all over like this. And then we're going to lift off our stencil, and it's kind of a little bit difficult to see, but you can actually see sitting here the where we've got the VersaMark. It's kind of picked up that powder and it's left the glue residue behind. And I'm going to use the Ranger Snowflake Tinsel embossing powder. It's gorgeous, really super sparkly embossing powder. The Wow one is also really pretty, but this one puffs up and just gives you a bit more dimension, which is what I'm going for on this card. And I'm just going to carefully try to hold the edges. I'm doing this over my tiny tray, so it's easy to put my embossing powder back again. I'm going to give it a nice tap here. And then I'm going to just take it over my trash can and give it a really good flick from the back. And you can see there how we've got all those beautiful details of that snowflake in there. I'm going to put this away. And this is one of those that is super sparkly. I'm just going to everything over the trash bag. I have a pretty basket next to me that's my trash. And I'm sure when my cleaner comes, she has glitter everywhere. So I'm now going to heat this. This is my Wagner heat tool that I'm going to use for my embossing powder. I don't use the Ranger one. You apparently can use it, but it takes a long time. Now to hold this still, I'm going to use my Tonic craft stick again. Notice is as I heated it with my Wagner heat tool, it does warp a little bit. You do have to be quite gentle and careful with it because it's an acrylic paper, so of course it wants to move around and melt with that intense heat. But what you will also notice is I heated it from the back to keep it warm, and then I put it straight through my Vagabond, and a lot of those crinkles are out. There are still a few in there. We can also get a few more of those out by using some tear tape. And you may know my preference of my favourite tear tape to use is the Elizabeth craft tape. Really strong, it will really hold its own, and if you're trying to smooth something out or you have a heavier element, things like that, it really does, I think, do the best job. So I'm going to put this on the back, and I actually kind of want a little bit of texture in this because I don't want it to be flat and lifeless. These are supposed to be snowflakes. And I do love some texture in my cards as well. So I'm going to go around. And I already have pre-cut a piece of navy cardstock. I'm going to mount this straight on there as best I can. And then as I put it down, I'm going to use that wallpaper roller you've seen me use many, many times before, particularly around those edges. And you can see how it's really straightening it out. And so that strong paper underneath is also going to really help keep it nice and straight on your card as well. And I think that looks so pretty. There's so much sparkle and glitter in there, and I'll be sure to get some really pretty close-up photos of that. Let's put that onto our card base as well. So this is the piece we're going to be using, just 8.5 by 11 Nina Solar White. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to use that tear tape, and I'm going to put it on the back. And that again will give it a nice bit of firm, something to hold on to keep it nice and straight. One of these rolls really will last you forever. There is so much on one of these rolls. I haven't run out yet, and I use them all the time for my cards. You'll have seen on different videos, the all over adhesive is great for your die cuts, and you can see how easy it is to release as well. Left a couple of bits behind where I've torn it. And of course a band-aid never helps when we're card making. Now I am going to have it, I think this way up. So also, if you haven't seen my videos before, I always mount my layers with the card open like this. If you have it like this, it's a little bit bouncy, it tends to move all over the place. So you'll find you get a much better result if you open up your card base. Now we want to stamp a sentiment, and I have chosen to use the Hello Winter stamp set from Neat and Tangled. I love this set. They actually sent it to me a couple of weeks ago with the new releases, and I am going to be also using the My Favourite Things slanted sentiment strips. For ink, I'm using the Lawn Fawn Blue Jay, which comes in one of their seasonal colour sets. So here we have everything we need. I have a piece of Nina Solar White that I'm going to stamp my sentiment on. So let's pop that in there with our magnet. I'm going to do the Enjoy the Stillness of. And the great thing about photopolymers, if you just drop them on the page, they will be straight. If you need it on a card, then you know I use my Misty Corner, that set square in there to move things around. That works really well too, but nothing I think works better than just letting it drop. And of course with photopolymers you can put them around circles and ovals and hearts and all sorts of fun shapes as well. I'm going to stamp this out twice. This is a new stamp. I've got a magnet on my back. I can feel it. There we go. So I have all my magnets coated with some duct tape. First of all, they look nice and pretty, and secondly, I find them much easier to work with that way. Then I'm going to just clean this off with my stamp chamois. And I'm going to cut these out using my Favourite Things slanted strips because they work so nicely on here. I'm going to grab a little bit of my Tonic tape. This is actually tape for the models that lots of people paint, like for battles and things, and it works so nicely on your paper. It's nice and gentle, but it's strong enough to hold things in place too. I don't use the magnetic cutting mats or anything like that. So there is our Enjoy the Stillness of. And I'm also going to grab my Misty back again, and we're going to stamp the inside of our card. So let's open up our card here. Again, we'll use our magnets to hold it down. It doesn't matter if it goes slightly off the edge here. It's going to stamp fine where we're stamping. And I'm going to go with this Winter. I'm kind of more going to have it angled, like so. And I'm going to use the same Lawn Fawn Blue Jay. And the Lawn Fawn Blue Jay cardstock is a beautiful blue cardstock as well. I do have some in my stash. So we'll stamp once. And I'm going to stamp again. This is a new photopolymer. I haven't conditioned it in any way. If you haven't seen our conditioning video, we do have one on the channel if you're interested in how I normally would condition my photopolymers, but I haven't got around to doing this one. So I'm just going to over stamp a couple of times, because by stamping you will naturally remove those release agents anyway. It's just sometimes you can't or don't want to do this, particularly if you have a larger stamp. It's much easier to condition than keep stamping like this. So you can see there how beautiful that colour of winter is. So let's just clean this off quickly. So, I find it so hard to work when I have a band-aid on, but as I say, I did take a slice out my finger this morning. So, you knocked my misty on the floor. Now let's put our piece on here. And I'm going to use a foam strip. These are the same strips I tend to use for shaker cards. Or if you've got the larger foam, then you can just cut one down in half. That works really well too. A nice zebra scissors, Maddie's favourite. So. I'm going to pull that one up. And I'm going to pop it over here like this. I'm going to line this edge up with the edge of my Yupo paper. And I really love how this is looking. So much texture. It really looks like that snow is falling on a winter's night. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this fun little look and some tips with working with alcohol inks, some different ideas. Not what we started out to do, but still absolutely love the result. Plus also how I heat embossed, and then you can straighten your panels out the same as well. So lots of tips and tricks in there. Be sure to click that subscribe button if you don't already, and we'd love to get a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. We'll see you again very soon for some more inspiration. Happy stamping! Bye!